welcome to this week's episode of Plants with Patrick. This week, we're going to learn how to care for and propagate aloe vera, also known as Aloe barbadensis Miller. We'll name this plant Miller. So, the great thing about aloe, and most people already know this, is that you can break the leaves off or cut them off, and there's a wonderful gel inside that you can use to help heal burns or wounds. And you also can eat the gel that's inside, but I wouldn't do that unless you know how to prepare it, because unless you know how to prepare it, it could function as a laxative. So today, we're just going to focus on how to deal with the actual plant and how to keep it alive and thriving so that when you get those sunburns, you can care for them afterwards. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is we're going to take this aloe here that's already planted, and I just want to show you. Aloe has a bunch of roots, but not actually as many as you would think. You have to be gentle with them because they don't like change. They kind of like to be, once they're established, they like to be in the same place with the same kind of light and the same kind of watering conditions. So these aloe that I'm planting and working with today are probably going to have a little bit of a hard time, but I'll just be patient and hopefully everything will work out. They're pretty hardy, and they grow in a wide variety of conditions, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. First, terracotta pots for aloe are great because aloe is a succulent, and the terracotta allows it to completely dry out in between each watering. One of the most common problems with aloe, much like the orchids that we dealt with last week, is that people overwater them. So, terracotta pots are great. The second thing I want to tell you is that, when an aloe grows, it kind of grows up this central stem like you see here, and it also will send off little runners, kind of like the money plant that we dealt with a couple of weeks ago. So the plant grows new baby plants, actually called pups, and the pups will come off the side of here. You can gently remove the pups as long as they still have roots on them, and you can plant those as well. The other way that we propagate aloe vera is by taking one of the leaves, a good, strong, healthy one, and cutting it down close to the base. And then I'll let this cure for about a week. Then you can dip it in rooting hormone after about a week. Oh, see all that good juice? It's so juicy. But after about a week, the end should be kind of calloused, and then you can plant that into soil. You can use rooting hormone if you want, but in my experience with aloe, you just put it in the ground and it will root itself. So you can propagate aloe by taking a leaf cutting, or by taking one of the pups, which I don't have one to show you, but I showed you a similar thing with the money plant a couple of weeks ago. So, the next thing that I'd like to talk about is the kind of soil that you'll be planting these succulents in. So the great thing about aloe is that they're pretty tolerant of most kinds of soil and lighting conditions. Like I said, they just don't like a change. So if you have your aloe in partial shade, keep it there. If you have it in a common potting soil mix with perlite, you can use that. You can also use more of a succulent-based mix, which is just going to drain even quicker, which is great because if water stays in the pot too long with the aloe, then the roots can rot. the thing about aloe is that even if the roots start to rot, you're probably still going to have a relatively healthy looking plant. It's just something to look out for because it will affect the health in the long term. Okay, once you repot or propagate a new aloe plant, you're going to want to make sure that the soil in the pot that you potted in stays moist for at least 4 weeks. So by moist, I mean it's damp to the touch. And you're going to want to keep it consistently so. So you don't need to swamp it with water or anything like that. But while it's getting established, it likes to have consistent moisture. Once it is established, after say a month or so, you really don't need to worry about it so much. The great thing about aloe, much like many of the houseplants that we've learned to propagate on this show, is that it doesn't really need much care. It's going to find a way to thrive despite your best efforts to forget about it. So, after it's been established, I don't think you need to water it more than once every 2 weeks, but it depends on the location that you have it. If you have it in a really sunny windowsill and your apartment's kind of dry, you may have to water it a little bit more. It's just about making sure, once the plant is established, that each time you water it thoroughly so that the soil is fully hydrated, and then you wait to water it again until you're absolutely sure that the entire pot from top to bottom is dry. You don't need to, like I said, the main thing that you need to worry about is overwatering, not underwatering. So I've just been putting some perlite potting soil mixture into this pot, so that, because I realized that the pot I had this growing in had kind of like, I guess a lot of the soil had kind of drained out the bottom. And it's good because it means the pot has good drainage, but it means that every once in a while I have to refresh it. So I'm going to put just a little bit more potting soil in here so that I have something to work with. Okay. So when you get, let's say this plant is a little pup, you would want to make sure that it had good, healthy roots. The way that you tell that a root is not healthy is if it's brown and brittle and dried, kind of like the roots that we saw with the orchids last week. If it looks kind of this like yellowish and like yellow, whitish, brownish, and it's, I guess tan would be the word. If it's tan and plump, then you know that you have good, strong roots for your plant. So I'm going to just plant this one right here. And the thing about aloe is that you can actually bury them pretty deep without them getting like drowning in the soil. So you could kind of plant this up a little bit. If you notice that your aloe is getting really top heavy, you can bury it a little bit deeper. Once you cut an aloe leaf, let's say you notice this one is bent and you don't like the way that bent edge looks. Once you cut an aloe leaf off, it's never going to grow back. It's just going to have the blunt end that you cut. So that's something to just be aware of. So if I'm going to clean up this aloe, I might just snip off that. And then the thing about aloe that's kind of cool is it shows the marks of all of its different little uses and times that you've interacted with it. So it'll always have that blunt edge, but I don't really mind it. We all have a few blunt edges. So I wanted to add to this pot because this pot is so big and there's not very much aloe in it, and I just thought maybe it would be nice to add to it. So I I got some plants at a little plant shop in my neighborhood. It's very nice. It's called 106 Flowers. It's on 106th Street if you're ever in the neighborhood, ever in the Spanish Harlem neighborhood. And so the thing that's cool about aloe is that oftentimes, even when it's pretty root bound, it comes out of its pot pretty easily. So then I might just kind of loosen these roots just a little bit. And then I'm gonna make a little hole for it. Hopefully not make a giant mess, but probably will. Put it nice and firmly down in there because these aloes do tend to be a little top heavy. And then kind of press it firmly in there, and I'm going to do one more as well. I might just take out a little bit of soil because I overestimated. So the thing to watch out for is once you have your aloe situated and you've kept it moist for about a month, if it's a newly propagated plant, and let's say it's pretty established, little things to watch out for. If the leaves of your aloe plant are turning purple, then it means that the plant is getting a little bit too much sun. So if that's something that you see, I might change its position slightly so that it gets a little less afternoon sun in the windowsill that it's in, or so that so that it's not like constantly in a bright location. Another thing to watch out for is if your aloe leaves turn yellow, then you're overwatering it, and that it is also a sign that maybe your roots are rotting. So it's important to kind of pull back on the watering if that's happening. And yeah, so we've gone over potting up aloe, we've talked about the different propagation methods, we've talked about some things to watch out for. I'd say now you're pretty much ready to go to the beach and know that you're going to be taken care of no matter what happens there. So that's all for this week.